My wife, Diana, is a long-legged, green-eyed blonde. I look more modest, a tall, blue-eyed, brown-haired man with a shrapnel scar on my left cheek and graying temples. A reminder of military service. We are 34 years old and have been together for 11 years. We have 2 children, Tom and Michael, boys aged 10 and 8. I work in a jewelry store as an appraiser. I appraise antique pieces and do appraisals for authenticity. My wife works at a beauty salon. She likes her job very much, although she has a university education. She graduated from the Technical University, specializing in refrigeration systems and equipment, but she has never worked a day. Immediately after graduating, she started learning how to make up, and a friend got her a job in a salon. We used to go on vacation to the sea with my children once a year. I don't like crowded Miami, so we went to a small family resort in Mexico. In terms of intimacy, we were fine. I felt that my wife was content with this sweet side of married life. Always and everywhere. That's my motto in this area. At least there were no complaints from my wife. I boldly went along with all of my wife's experiments and suggestions. That was until recently. But then, 6 months ago, her mother got sick. Diana threw herself into helping her. Frequent nightly vigils at her mom's bedside began to strain our family relationship. No, outwardly everything was the same. My wife's gentle, loving, tired sadness at her denial of intimacy. Well, you understand, I'm so exhausted at work and with my mother. Wait, my love, not now. And a gentle, caressing touch on my cheek. That not now became the motto of our married life. Everything was not now, from intimacy to vacations. Her mother continued to be ill, and my wife visited her more and more often. And at some point, she began to spend more time with her mother than with her husband and her own children. "She's my mama," she said in a fierce voice, practically screaming. I'm not a jealous person by nature, and Diane has never given me a reason to be jealous. Although we live in a big city, you can't hide things. Everything gets out sooner or later. But as they say, Caesar's wife is above suspicion. If there was something, I would have known. What an arrogant fool I was. It is only now that I realize that adultery is inherent in the very nature of women, that the lives of most of them are subordinated to emotions and passions. When they get caught up in loving, they forget everything. Their husbands, their children, their conscience. Everything is an illusion, there's only me. That fateful day had been a mess since the morning. When I arrived at work, I remembered I had left the bathroom light on. No big deal, but I decided to call my wife at home and ask her to check. But there was no answer on either my home or cell phone. I was just about to head home when I got connected to a customer on the line. "Steve, here's Jack Sullivan. I was wondering if you could come over to my house and take a look at something. I've been offered an antique platinum ring from the mid-19th century, but I don't know if it's authentic. I'll pay you well to come and see it." The man who spoke had that enchanting, enveloping baritone. It makes our sex partners go soft in the head. Sullivan. The name sounded familiar. And then I remembered. A wealthy philanthropist. At home in the summer, in Europe in the winter. He owns a local newspaper and a stake in the oil business. I guess he decided to invest his money in antiques. Well, if you have the money, then we'll come to you, I thought. All right, I can be there at 4 o'clock. Text me your address. Great. Then I'll have the seller here by then. I won't say goodbye. Jack hung up the phone. I dialed my wife's number again. It was useless. So I called the salon. The nice girl told me in a sweet voice that Diane wouldn't be at work today. She had taken 3 days off at her own expense. Jack Sullivan's home was in an upscale cottage community 30 miles out of town. His house reeked of money. I walked down the tiled driveway and pushed open the heavy front door. The owner, a handsome playboy of about 45, wearing a housecoat draped over his naked body, the lapels of which revealed the graying curls on his chest, met me at the threshold. His whole look told me that he was doing me a great favor by breathing the same air as me. "Please, Steve." He put a warm smile on his face. "Let's go upstairs to my office." We went up the marble stairs and found ourselves in a hallway with several doors. Before we could exchange a few sentences, the owner's cell phone buzzed. "Brian." "Yeah, I'm home. I'll meet you right away." "Just a minute, Steve," the homeowner said to me. "I'll go downstairs and meet the salesman. Please, cognac whiskey." "Help yourself." Without closing the door, Jack Sullivan started down the stairs. I called my wife again. Where had she gone? I was getting nervous. The long ringing tone came again, and suddenly a painfully familiar melody played. I didn't realize at first that it was my wife's phone. I went out into the hall. The sound came from the next room, and I cautiously opened the door. In the middle was a large unmade bed under a blue silk canopy. A ringing cell phone with a glowing screen lay sideways on the bedside mat. It had apparently fallen by accident. For a few seconds I stood there stunned, not knowing what to think or do. My heart was pounding in my throat and periodically dropped into my stomach. I bent down and picked up my cell phone. On the burning screen I saw my face and the signature my love. There was no doubt, it was Diana's phone. I picked up the phone and put it in my pocket. I looked up at the bed. The thin straps of her pink bra were sticking out from under the pillow. I gently pulled on one of them, and in my hand was my wife's lace bra, the same one from the said Diane, and I had bought a month ago. I slipped it into the inside pocket of my jacket and quickly returned to the office. A few minutes later, the owner walked in, accompanied by a thin, dull-looking man. He introduced us. The guest did not hesitate to take out an antique Morocco suitcase and hand it to me. I was afraid that my hands would shake. Restraining myself as best I could, I carefully opened the lid and saw a magnificent antique ring set with a ruby. I examined it for a few minutes with a magnifying glass. Then I held it up to the lamp and looked at the marks on the inside of the ring and the play of light in the blood-red stone. There was no doubt. It was indeed an antique ring from the mid-19th century. "I want to give it to the woman I love," said the owner smugly. I silently wrote the report, gave it to Sullivan, received my honorarium, and quickly retired. I couldn't bear to be in that house. I wonder if Jack Sullivan knows I'm his mistress's husband. There was no doubt in my mind that my Diana was his mistress. God, I tried so hard to be so calm. I wanted to punch that pompous face. Fortunately, I still had my army skills. I sat in the car for a long time and couldn't move. That's where Diana had spent her evenings and nights for the last 6 months. And the mother had diligently covered up her daughter's actions. For a moment I felt desperate. Why is she doing this to me? Why? If I could, I would have cried. I had to try to pull myself together. Where to? Okay, I'm going home to finish this. I turned left and started driving. After a while, I got on the highway and drove towards the lights of the big city, flickering with advertisements. I have no luck with women. Sooner or later they leave me. When I was a child, my mother left me for her lover. Apparently, there was no place for me in her happy future. And now I have a wife. After 11 years of marriage, she's decided to change her life. A clean slate, so to speak. What is it about me that women don't stay with me for long? My father never remarried after my mother left him. He loved me and was afraid that my stepmother wouldn't be able to replace my mother. No woman needs other people's children. And in general, a woman doesn't owe anything to anyone. It's a man's duty to raise and support other people's children. The rule for cuckolds and servants, not the father who conceived, but the one who raised. It doesn't apply to a woman. That's how we lived, 2 men abandoned by the woman we loved. Then my father died, and I went to live with my grandparents. An orphan with a living mother. Women often accuse men of being too cruel. What nonsense! On the road to personal happiness, a woman will stop at nothing. She will sweep away everything in her path. Everything, including her own children. Women are far superior to men in cruelty and cunning. Diana. What was she missing? Love? Tenderness, money? Adrenaline? In 11 years, I've never looked at another woman. Maybe I should have. Did she see my love as weakness? Convince herself that I wasn't going anywhere? Maybe Diana never loved me. It doesn't seem like it. All these years we've lived soul to soul. I would have known a lie. I would have felt it in my heart. Until today, I hadn't seen any signs of my wife's infidelity. Everything was as smooth as ever. That's what tore my heart apart the most. Stupid asshole. Diana had been cheating for almost 6 months, rolling around in someone else's bed, pretending everything was fine. Morning monologues, taking care of the kids, taking care of me. And all a lie in the end. I was reminded of the words of an emancipated woman I know. A husband is a potential enemy. Do they really think that? And behave accordingly. As if in bed with the enemy. The result for me was clear. I felt uncomfortable with Diana, even squeamish. An unfaithful woman is like an ashtray. It looks clean, but you'd think someone was putting cigarette butts in it. And another thing. In the background of what happened, I was somehow too calm. Maybe later I'll realize the horror of what happened. In the meantime, it's like a stupor. It's like it's not happening to me, and I'm just watching from the sidelines. When I got home, Diana wasn't there yet. I went into the kitchen, took an open bottle of cognac from the cupboard and put it on the table. but I wasn't in a hurry to drink it. I decided to explain myself to my wife sober. After midnight, Diane showed up. "Steve, I'm sorry. Jessica is having trouble with her husband, as usual. I had to go comfort her. I was going to call, but I left my phone somewhere. I must have left it at my mother's." Diane rattled off her coat and boots in the hallway. "Hi." She gave me a peck on the cheek. "Oh, cognac. Will you pour me one? I'm so tired from the day, I can't believe it." "You bet. Not everyone can take it. It's such a burden. Work, children, husband, lover." I looked at Diana in silence. I wondered how she would get out of this situation. Would she confess the affair or play the fool to the end? I'm taking a shower. My wife almost ran into the bathroom. It was clear that she hadn't been to Jessica's today. Strange, if the lover does not have a bathroom and Diana has to leave without taking a shower. Is this some kind of fetish? Or are sins better washed at home? Diana said something, but the sound of the water drowned out her words. I didn't care what she said. I didn't care what she said. I cared what I said. My wife came into the kitchen with a robe over her naked body and a towel on her head. She smiled seductively and poured some brandy into a flute. For a moment, it seemed as if nothing had happened. Just an ordinary evening out of 1,000. But only for a moment. "Diana, sit down, we have to talk." I tried to control myself. "Have you noticed that conversations about cheating always start the same way? We need to talk. It doesn't matter if it's the husband or the wife. The important thing is that it's time to explain." Diana gave me a startled look, but left it. "Can we postpone it until tomorrow?" she said uncertainly, and waved her eyes. I realized that she had guessed the topic of conversation and was trying to stall. But I was adamant. "Diana, are you seeing someone?" "What do you mean?" My wife made a surprised face. "Right, she's a fool. I mean a lover." "You have a lover? How long have you been cheating on me?" I tried my best to speak calmly. "A year, 6 months, a month?" "Steve, what the hell? What lover? Who's cheating? My God, what are you talking about?" My wife's indignation seemed to know no bounds. "She's an insult to innocence. She's a good girl. She's a good shot. Not a muscle in her face." "Diane, don't be ridiculous. I know everything. How much, with whom, and even where. By the way, did you find a cell phone? Can we call Mom?" The woman was silent, collecting her thoughts. "It's very bad to be so absent-minded. You have to check if she's forgotten something." I put her cell phone on the kitchen table. I could see Diana's pupils dilate, and she put her hand over her mouth. "Where did you get it?" she whispered weakly. "I found it in Jack's bedroom." "I wonder what you call him. Bunny, Pookie, Kitten? How about Bear?" I mocked her openly. "Steve, you got it all wrong. Yes, I was at his house, but it was for work. I was just giving him a manicure." Diane was ready to cry. She hadn't even asked which Jack. She must have known who he meant. In the bedroom, in his bed? I suppose so. Maybe you were also giving him a massage. What massage? What are you talking about? Diane screamed. She must have gotten over the surprise. Silently, I put her bra on the table. The pink one with the lace. Diana was silent, feverishly thinking of an excuse. I was hot, so I put on a robe and took off my bra at the same time. You know how your breasts sweat, especially in a bra. You men don't understand that. So there was a striptease. I laughed out loud. I wasn't laughing at all. Diane shuddered as if struck by a blow, apparently realizing that her explanation wasn't working. Steve, I only love you. I don't need anyone else. I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm telling the truth. We have 2 children. What, lover? What adultery? Diana fell to her knees before me. My darling, my darling. I'm not guilty of anything before you. I have only one man, and that's you. Believe me. Diana was already sobbing, not holding back her emotions. She grabbed my hand and began to kiss it. Tears ran down her cheeks. And there was so much love and tenderness in her voice that it was impossible not to forgive her. Diana's voice was already sobbing, unable to contain her emotions. She grabbed my hand and kissed it. Tears streamed down her cheeks. And there was so much love and tenderness in her voice that it was impossible not to forgive her. What can I say? Tears are heavy artillery. Men are emotionally weaker than women. I wanted to embrace Diana, kiss her beloved eyes, stroke her hair, comfort her. I mean, really, what the hell is cheating? She was just at work. So what if she dropped her cell phone? It's no big deal. I'm not even talking about her bra. It's no big deal. She's so honest with me. Yes, I would have forgiven her if it were not for the familiar antique platinum ring with a blood-red ruby instead of a wedding band on the ring finger of her right hand. I sat and listened to Diana's heartbreaking lamentations, noticing that her tone had changed somewhat. Her voice was no longer hysterical, and I even thought my wife was calming down. What is it, I wondered? Did Diana take my silence as a willingness to reconcile? Or did she think she could convince me of her loyalty? It has long been known that women consider a man to be a special species of upright creature that they study closely, try to feed, and teach to eat out of their hand. The most important thing is that he did not bite off his fingers with a piece of sugar. Well, I'm being ironic now, but at the time I was sitting there stunned. I was just beginning to get the full meaning of what was happening. Diana finally stopped talking and stared at me silently through her tears, probably expecting me to throw myself into her arms. Really, what else could you expect from an idiot whose wife had been walking around for almost 6 months, and he didn't have a clue? Diana tried to hug me, but I pulled away. Where did you get that ring? I took her right hand. A ring? She looked at me confusedly, and her eyes wavered treacherously. Yes, the one with the ruby. It's... A friend offered to buy it, so I took it to try it on, to see if it suits me or... Diana already realized that it was the end, still trying desperately to hold on to the words, but she was not very good at it. Okay, that's enough. I think you should go now. Especially if you have somewhere else to go. I'll file for divorce myself. We'll decide about the children. I got up. I had to get this show over with. My wife went to get dressed, sobbing uncontrollably. She tried to talk to me several times, but I kept my mouth shut. At the door, she turned to me and tried to say something, but I silently closed the door behind her. When you love, you don't need anyone else. No one. No one. And if there is someone other than the person you love, that's it. We're together is over.